These are the top 3 worst parts of being a veterinarian as someone who's a veterinarian. The first one is having to deal with money. Most people think that we get into this profession because we're in it for the money, but we actually don't make that much money compared to how much debt we have from veterinary school. And if I could have like an ideal universe, I would be able to be a veterinarian and not charge anything for my services. I wish that I could take all of the sick and suffering animals and provide them care for free. Having to deal with money is the worst part of our jobs because people come in, a lot of people don't have insurance for their pets, which if you guys want a video on insurance, let me know in the comments because it is super important and there's a lot of like nuances and complexity to like which insurance to pick, what it covers, and it can honestly like save your pet's life in, you know, a dire situation where you just can't afford the crazy vet bill. And honestly, it can also just make like preventative care a lot cheaper and easier as well. But that's besides the point. There's a lot of times where people come into the clinic and need care for their pet, but they simply cannot afford it. And a lot of veterinary clinics actually will not do payment plans. And I think a lot of the reasons are because they've been stiffed before in the past where people just don't pay it and it's complicated. But if you don't offer a payment plan and you don't have insurance, a lot of times people can't cover their bills. And so the only other option is to relinquish your pet or provide euthanasia. And I don't want to euthanize a pet that doesn't need euthanizing or doesn't need euthanized. And I wish that I could just provide that service for you, those diagnostic tests, those medications, because a lot of times it's really simple, but it's simple and expensive. And so having to like navigate those conversations and those challenges is so mentally draining because I went to school to be a veterinarian. I didn't go to school to be, you know, a financial advisor, I don't even know the word. I didn't go to school to deal with money. And so as a veterinarian, I'm often put in that position where I have to, you know, have those talks with clients about this is what your dog needs and this is what it's gonna cost. And if you can't afford it, you have to find help elsewhere or, you know, unfortunately, like let go of your pet. And like, I just don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. I think it's crazy that we live in a world where like, you know, people can't afford healthcare for themselves or their pets. And I get it that like if you have a pet, it's your responsibility to have the finances to support them. I totally get that. But a lot of times these pets are people's only companions. I've worked with a lot of like low income populations and these pets are what keeps them alive. Like these pets are their friends, their safety, their companionship. Like, and I can't fault people for not being able to afford vet services. They are really expensive. And like as a veterinarian, I don't see all of that money. The $400 that you pay for an x-ray does not go to me. It goes to, I don't really know where, but I don't see that. I make a good salary, but nothing crazy. And it's really frustrating because I know it's expensive, but I also have no influence over the price of services. I just have to tell you like your dog needs an x-ray and then it probably needs surgery and this is how much it's gonna cost. And then it's up to you to figure that out. And there are credit cards that people can sign up for, but they seem a little bit predatory of like having high interest rates. And it's just really tough. So money and having to charge clients for services is the number one thing I hate about this profession. And just remember that the next time that you know, say to your vet, well, if you cared about my dog, you should do it for free. We want to, we just cannot. Unless you own your own business, then I guess you can, but I don't. So that's the number one thing. The second thing I hate about the veterinary profession is when you have an animal who is suffering and the owners are not ready to let go. It puts us as veterinarians in a really tough position because I will never feel right saying to someone, your dog needs to be put down right now. I guess I can say that to someone, but I can never force someone to put their dog down. I can help guide you to, you know, now is the right time because of X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, that is your decision. That is your dog. And so it's hard when we have clients who keep bringing us their pets who needed to be put down weeks or months ago, but the owners aren't ready for a myriad of reasons. And there's no judgment to the owners. I get it. When your pet is your sole companion and you guys are bonded, it can be so incredibly difficult to let go and know when the right time to let go is. But as a veterinarian who sees the signs that your pet is ready to let go, it's a really difficult conversation to navigate. And I have to support not only the client, or not only the patient, but I have to support the client as well. Because as a veterinarian, we don't just take care of the animals. We also, are therapists and, help the humans who are going through those situations as well. So it's a really tough, gray area of, I want to tell you, this is what you have to do it. But I can't force you to do it. And also, it's not my decision. I can tell you that your animal's suffering. I can tell you, maybe what I would do in that situation. But at the end of the day, the patient or the client is not going to do it until they are ready. And so it's really tough sitting by and, balancing how firm to be with patients. I don't know, would you guys want someone to tell you if they really thought that it was time for your pet to be euthanized? Let me know, because it's a really tough gray area, and you want to be delicate, but you also want to be firm, and you want to protect the pet, but you also want to support the owner. So hate that, and it happens really often. And then the third thing that I dislike about this profession is having too much knowledge and then being hyper aware of all of these things that could be going on in my own pets. So we go to school for 4 years of undergrad and then 4 years of veterinary school, where we learn about all different pets, all different diseases, all of that. I have 3 pets myself, and I noticed that starting the first year of vet school, I became hyper aware of anything that my pets would do. And I became almost like a hypochondriac, whatever the word is. And I thought that my, pets had every single disease that I was learning about. I also, when I'm walking down the streets, I will analyze the animals that I see, and I'll see a dog walking funny, and I'm like, ooh, that dog probably has luxating patella. Or I'll see a brachiocephalic in the heat and want to tell the owners, hey, you really shouldn't have your dog out because it can't regulate its temperature well and could get heat stroke. I'll see dogs at the dog park and automatically think of my time in the emergency room where, dogs came in from dog fights and parasites from the dog parks. And so my mind is constantly spinning a million miles an hour about all the things that could be happening to my pets and the pets that I see. And I wish sometimes I could just turn that little voice off and live in peaceful ignorance and bliss and just go on with my life and hope that the animals are going to be okay. But unfortunately, you can't unlearn all that information. So it's just this constant voice in my head. But overall, I love this profession. These are just 3 things that I'm not a huge fan of. Let me know if you have any others in the comments below.